Om Mantranam Jivabhutam Tuya Smritin Shakti Ripaya Tatahina Vadarohe Nishfalaha Sharda Bravat Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. She, who the seers of ancient times came to know and recognize as the imperishable Shakti, is the profound meaning in all the sutras and slokas of the revealed scriptures of the world. Without her, all the tattvas, the cosmic principles, air, earth, fire, water, the five senses, would become like clouds with no rain. She is the perfect I consciousness, inherent in all the multitude of words, and the secret of all the mantras, whose very nature is the essence of non-duality. Om, peace, peace, peace. And there shines Brahman. May that Brahman protect us. May that Brahman sustain us. And may that Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not suffer from limitations. And may the essence of the scriptures be revealed to us. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om Tat Sat. So with that fitting sloka from the Tantra Sadbhava scriptures of India, we invoke the Divine Mother of the Universe, because the Upanishad we're about to embark on, which is open-ended, might say. We're not sure how many classes it will take, but we're not going to worry about it. We're just going to go ahead and take all the slokas of this short Upanishad over the next month of Sundays at least. That's, of course, before our visit to the West Coast for our retreat on the power of words. Now, that very power of words and thoughts is indicative of what's contained in this Upanishad called Bahvricha Upanisad. What does that mean? Well, humorously, you could probably say it's rich, Bahvricha. It's rich with the teachings of the Divine Mother of the Universe. As far as literal Sanskrit meaning into English, Bahvricha is just a word that means everything that has to do with the Rig Veda, is how they describe that nowadays. So it's one of the two Shakti Upanishads in the Rig Veda. We know in all the four Vedas, there are 7, nowadays maybe 8 Shakta Upanishads, they're calling them. Interesting that years ago, decades, maybe a decade or two ago, we started studying those Upanishads without knowing that they'd been classified as Shakta Upanishads in all of our retreats in Portland and Seattle. We looked at the Devi Upanishad, we looked at the Sita Upanishad, we looked at the Saubhagya Lakshmi Upanishad, we looked at the Annapurna Upanishad, we looked at and studied very deeply most all of those. At the time, I was thinking in my own study, there was maybe 7 of them, but with the Bahvricha, then that would make 8. So Mother kind of veiled the Bahvricha Upanishad from me for a while. It's a companion to the Tripura Upanishad. So I've brought both the Bahvricha Upanishad, which is just a short 1 or 2 pages of sutras, slokas, and I've also brought the Tripura Upanishad, excuse me, so that we could also look into that. because it references that quite a bit. It's one of the great names for the goddess is Tripura Sundari, which has to do with the three cities that she occupies, the three realms of consciousness, or the three states of mind, if you want to put it that way, as you go deeper. So Bahvricha Upanisad is going to be our study. We're going to look into some of the powerful slokas that contain so much mother wisdom. The whole Upanishad proceeds on that honest and straightforward premise that, as Sri Ramakrishna used to say, without her, I can't even lift my finger. So he's referring to Shakti power, which animates everything. In a sense, it doesn't matter whether Brahman's behind it or not. Brahman can't animate anything by itself because it's non-dual and transcendent. It's not found in the realms of name and form and in nature and so forth. It only reflects there. And we were talking even this morning at 3:30 in the morning, as we had some profound experiences at that time, talking about how Swami Vivekananda's point of, you cannot bring Brahman down here to matter. Matter has to be taken up to Brahman. So we were trying to put our minds on the meaning of that saying of his. For instance, if you want to make something vibrate in a spiritual way, then you'll do something with Brahman in mind. That's no doubt. Like you'll bury a statue of Ganesha under all four main posts of your temple you're building before the temple's even built. Put a statue of Ganesha in the ground so that it's starting out on that auspicious right footing that Lord Ganapati always gives everything. So that's not just like superstition, and it's not just New Age thinking. It's not even mysticism. It's just a fact of existence that you start out with something powerful and auspicious in every undertaking that you undertake. Building a temple would be that important. It would be probably in the mind of the devotee householders also, to, before they build their homes, to install Ganesha first, and then make sure that the main room of the house gets dedicated to the Lord. It's called a shrine room, in case you don't have one yet. So that's, of course, what we've been about here in SRV for some 40 years, is all the householders and beings who came to be students of the teachings were told about how to dedicate a room and a space towards Brahman. So, and for your spiritual practice to go forward in. But you can do that. It's been seen, to follow the analogy, you can do that and not feel any presence of Brahman there. So Brahman hasn't really come down, has it, into your shrine room. So you're going to have to deify those things that you put into the shrine room and treat them with great care and with great reverence, so that they begin to emanate the Brahman that's already in them. So that's the great non-dual premise, is that Brahman, Atman, if we want to call it that way, is permeating everything. And the Upanishad starts out saying that, how she's the Atman in everything. And so everyone from the Trinity down to the animals and insects have that Atman in them. And so it's not dependent on the form, how developed it is, how mature it is, how evolved it is. That's only in terms of how, if you can realize that the Atman's within you, then the mechanism has to be human and so forth. Then that can realize the higher truths. Whereas the lower subhumans cannot do that. You don't see them doing that. But humans are striving for higher enlightenment quite often, and they get inspired to do so. So they're raising their mind to a higher level. See, I mean, what I'm saying here is proven by the fact that if you're with a person who goes into a higher state of consciousness, like the direct disciples were with Sri Ramakrishna, or Holy Mother was with Sri Ramakrishna, then, his mind went up to a higher plane. And then it's related in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, his mind now returned to a more ordinary state. Of course, his ordinary state was much higher than the ordinary state of most people, including the devotees around him. But the point is that in order to see Brahman and everything, his mind had to escalate, go inward ascension. And then he saw everything as Brahman. And when he came back down, no, he didn't see everything as Brahman. He knew intellectually it was Brahman because he had seen it with his own third eye when he was in a higher state. That's how you have to raise yourself to Brahman, and you can't bring Brahman down here. That's why even the avatar will suffer. Avatar to ant, there are all those forms with Atman in them. They'll all suffer as long as they have the form. So suffering can be alleviated and even transcended if you learn that art of raising your mind to a higher level of consciousness, just like worshiping in your shrine and asking Brahman to come out of the images, because Brahman's not going to come down to the realm of name and form. No man has ever seen God with these eyes, is the idea there. So you follow the inner truths of philosophy to a T like that, and then you begin to feel the divine presence in everything. If we were to give you a pecking order of things in Indian philosophy, you'd start with Brahman, and probably you'd have to put Shakti with it because they're like fire and its power to burn. Brahman, Shakti first. And if you were tantric oriented, you'd say Parama Shiva, Parama Shakti would be that same coupling. So the two are one. So after Brahman and Shakti, then the Word, right? After the Word, then the Trinity. After the Trinity, Indra and the gods. He's the god of the gods. You'll read about him in the Kena Upanishad. When Indra first saw Brahman, he didn't know what it was. And the Divine Mother appears in the Kena Upanishad and says, oh, that was Brahman you just saw as a pillar of light, you see. So the gods don't even know about Brahman when they're gods. They don't get that opportunity to have darshan that often with the highest. So anyway, Trinity, Indra, the gods, demigods, ancestors, humans, subhumans, animals, insects, plants, right? This is how all of those beings are mentioned here in the Bahvricha Upanishad as coming out of mother's womb. So that's the golden womb. That's called Hiranyagarbha. And those of you that were with me, everyone in this room right now was with me when we went to India some weeks ago and had a retreat on Om. 7 days with the word, we called that. And I had created 7 new charts for it, one of which I've brought, which I can review for you, and how Lord Brahma, is so much involved in the process of Om and Hiranyagarbha, and how the Shakti initiates him or animates him to think and send the power of the word that she's given him into the cosmic process, into the cosmic egg, so that everything begins anew in a new phase, right? So phases of time are always going on inside of Prakriti, always inside of nature. And the thing is that the Atman or Brahman is watching this as the highest of all beings. When you talk about Brahman, of course, it's beyond individuals, so it's very difficult to speak of it. So this gives you a kind of introduction to the kind of wisdom that you find in a typical, which is really quite atypical, Shakta Upanishad. There are lots of divinities at the higher level of consciousness, not just in the Hindu pantheon, but in other religions that you can have communion with. They all exist. And some people get confused and say, oh, no, only that exists. But that's just one facet of the diamond and one spin of the wheel of time. So all of this is existing simultaneously, and that's really the point of non-duality. She's the essence of non-duality. So I just chanted. So she has this power of cohesiveness in her that no matter how anything gets far flung away from the source, like say animals, insects, plants away from Brahman in that pecking order, it'll still maintain its connection with divine reality because she's there. She's the all-pervasive presence in everything. And she's also the hardest to find. You don't find her listed in, say, Kapil's 24 cosmic principles. You don't find her listed in most of the Upanishads. You don't find her accounted for in but just a few of the tantras. You don't find her listed in the 8 limbs of yoga, except the last sloka, right? Koivalya pratistam swarupam. Koivalya swarupa pratistam. Vachiti shakti iti. Finally, at the end, Father of Yoga comes out and says, she's the mother of all your thoughts. Vachiti shakti. She's the mother of thinking. She's the mother of intelligence. She's the mother of the word. And she strips everything off of nature and returns you free of form after you've gotten yourself embroiled in form at the end and gives you koivalya. So koivalya swarupa pratistam. What are those words? Koivalya is isolation from nature. Swarupa is essence, and pratistam is steady. So she's steady as an essence in everything. And she herself exists beyond nature, but controls nature and animates nature too. So that is what we've been talking about, is the covering power for most people. If a seer comes into this world, they come in already armed with knowledge of her. They have the revelatory power. That's called the opposite of avarana. Avarana is covering, vikshepa is distorting, and then you have the prakasha shakti, the revelatory power. So the seer will come into the word with the revelatory power already there. He's already looking for the Lord. It's unaccountably missing here. It's inexplicably missing. It's hiding. I can't find it anywhere, so I have to look for the signs of it. Just like you'd know wind by the movement of other things, you're going to have to know Shakti by the movement of other things, by prana, right? So most people are going to be apt to mistake prana for her and turn her into a goddess of energy. But she's a goddess of thoughts, energy, and then she's a goddess of transcendent of thought too. Because reality cannot be matter, it cannot be energy, and it can't be concept, thought. It's beyond all three of those. That's how a quick thumb measurement of what reality is in a simple, easy English phrase would be, it's not matter, it's not energy, and it's not thought. Those all happen in the body-mind mechanism. So, and really, when you come right down to it, she doesn't happen at all. She is. She doesn't become. She's your being. And so the highest thoughts are like that. You find out the highest thoughts, as I was just saying, you're going to have to raise yourself to them, right? That's called revelation and insight. They're not going to fall into you, into your ownership very easily, are they? Most people are just going about their everyday life without any higher thoughts whatsoever occurring to them, maybe their whole life, because they don't believe, they don't have faith, they haven't been trained, they didn't get the Dharma, they didn't have parents, on and on, all these reasons why people are just living mundane, conventional lives. And even conventional religion isn't giving them the wisdom of Divine Mother. And how she sees, it's not just creation we have to be looking at here, it's the mother of creation. And then it's how everything gets projected from this cosmic womb. See? That's the Hiranyagarbha that we'll talk about today, which she brings up right away. So let's have a look at the key chart that I always create for a class series like this, and give you a look at some of the facets on it, which some of them are contained here in the Upanishad itself. Saham. So basically, the Upanishad starts out with this beautiful Om Bhadram Karnabihi Srinayamadevah. We hear with these ears what is noble, uplifting, and see with these eyes what is good and spiritual, and always serve the Lord and Mother with healthy minds and bodies and so forth. These peace chants are called. One of seven starts out the Bahvricha Upanisad. And right away then you're talking about great sayings that are there. And right at the top of that, you have one of the Mahavakyas. It's not one of the four classic Mahavakyas, which are Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Atma Brahma, and Pragyanam Brahman, right? Those are the four great sayings in the Upanishads that have been culled out to expressly describe, as far as words can say, in an economy of words, who you are and what reality is and how you're one with it. See, like you can't really mistake Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. It's like jump to the chase. But even the Avatar says, don't give that out to people who can't understand it yet, because they'll make a mockery of it. So you'll start them out with something like Saham. So this Upanishad starts out pretty much with the mother devotee called a Shakta as a mother devotee. Their favorite saying is Saham, she I am. So they're identifying with mother principle, with mother power, with mother intelligence, with mother presence, and fully, so they know that if they can put themselves at the feet of the Divine Mother, then everything will go right in all levels of their practice, right on up to the non-dual, because she's also one with Om. Om has come out of her in order to make this cosmic egg. She's used that. And Lord Brahma has gotten in there at the beginning and helped project the word that she gave him into the cosmic egg of nature. We can review that chart real quickly to show us how that happens. And then everything starts forth in a new set of ages, a new age, or new Maha Yuga, that's called. 4 ages. Comes in four ages like that, in which there are 4 avatars prevalent in each age, 1 in each. So that's what the title of this is about. Saham, I am she. Subtitled the Rig Veda's finest jewel. And basically this is right at the beginning of the Rig Veda, along next to the Tripura Upanisad, which is almost a statement. I say Rig Veda first because it's inarguably the oldest. It's probably the oldest scripture in the entire world, but it's definitely the oldest of the Upanishads. So nowadays people are measuring it by historical terms, and I read a silly statement the other day that says, "Oh, the Vedas aren't a parashaya. They don't claim to be a parashaya. A parashaya means divinely oriented. Parashaya means thought up by someone." So a lot of people are thinking, "Oh, the scriptures like this were thought up by some seer and then written down," but he couldn't have thought it up if it hadn't been already in existence. So he had to go inside, meditate on it, hear the voice of the mother, say these revelations to him, and then speak it out to his students, and later on, maybe hundreds of years later, write it down so that it didn't get corrupted by the tongue of man, because it will over ages. So like that, I saw this silly saying that the Vedas never claimed themselves to be of divine origin, Parasheda. And my immediate thought was, it's because they don't need to. Have you read them yet? If you read them, you will know for certain that they're of divine origin, because nobody could have thought that up. You see? Who could think up Brahman, Shakti, the Word, the Trinity, the pantheon of gods, then the demigods, then the ancestors, then the humans, and then the earth realm with its animals, insects, and plants? Who could have thought all of that up? See? Are you just going to call that a complete myth, a pipe dream some seer had who had a great imagination? That's proof of itself right there. It's proof that existence exists. They never argued about whether God existed in India. They just said God is existence. And so this is the root of everything, is that if you want to take everything back to a source of origin, which India always did, then you'll find her there as the very mother of their thoughts, the thoughts of the rishis. That's why I started out saying, Mantranam Jiva Bhuta Tuya Smrita Shakti Rupaya. Smrita, they remembered her through all this time because they got to know her. And so then they came to know her as the imperishable Shakti. Every lifetime she was there. And they started to remember their lifetimes. Then, of course, they remembered her because who was supplying them with their lifetime? It's like you have a mother, right? I mean, I remember one Swami telling me once, he was talking to atheists who came to his center, and so he said, if they tried to talk to him about the existence of things like that, I just said, do you have a mother? And they'd all have to admit, yes. It's just that simple, he would tell them. Everything has a beginning, has an origin. And so the best of all origins here is Divine Mother of the universe, that Shakti power. If you, Tuya Smrita, if you remember her, Shakti Rupaya, that she's the form of divine energy, then you will you'll realize that everything here, the tattvas, are unsatisfying, like clouds with no rain, see, if she's not present in them. And so look at people's lives. They're eating fruits and vegetables from water, that sunlight that comes from the sky, and they're going through life without, full of misery. I asked my tax person yesterday, how do you find people? Because it's tax time right now, right? So how do you find people coming to you? She sees like, dozens of people a week coming to do the taxes. She said, they're very fearful, because right now it's a very difficult time in American politics and American life. So she says, they're just very fearful and afraid of losing things. So she said, but I'm not that way. I don't have fear because I don't believe in money. A tax person told me this. She said, I believe in numbers. They don't lie, but I don't believe in money. So I said, well, I believe in words, but they can lie, and numbers can too if they're in the wrong hands. So the word got into the right hands, is my point here, when it got into the minds of the seers. They remember her as the imperishable Shakti from age to age. So when Lord Brahma plants that power that she's given him, that she's vested in him, into the cosmic egg, it's going to fructify and produce all those unimaginable plethora of things. Unimaginable how much can come out of just a little matra, a little tiny letter. What to speak of then a word that has several letters in it, like AUM. Unimaginable how much is there. So this is why we're talking about one of the greatest words in all of existence is Saham, she I am. If you can find that truth and meditate upon her with that bijam, Saham, it's actually 2 syllables. Because we know aham, I am, so Saham just makes it she, right? Saham, she I am. Now you've put the divine personality in line with everything, because you can look from the Trinity and on down, but you haven't accounted for their existence yet. How did they get to the place where they were, where they could project, sustain, and dissolve the worlds? How did Shiva get the power to dissolve? How did Vishnu get the power to preserve everything for so long? And how did Brahma get the power to start it in motion? There had to have been an incepting power, a preceptor, uh, uh, a primeval presence that gave them these great words. So I brought up a chart on that, but it's not quite time to look at it yet, but we can look at a few of the great sayings like Saham. They're recorded in the scriptures, but Saham is particularly for the Shaktas. They like that best of all. They like that perspective, best of all sayings, better than the non-dual sayings, she I am. Because they know if they put themselves in her hands, they'll not get lost. Great non-dualists have got lost in the transcendent heights of Brahman, but she won't, you'll never lose her and she'll never lose you. It's like A boy hanging onto his father's hands could fall down. But if the father holds on to his hand, he's not going to fall. So they feel like, she's holding on to their hands because they've identified with her. So they're not ever going to fall away from reality, from their divine nature, from truth, and from lifetimes of freedom, Jivan Mukta. So you see there a good image of her in the right coloring for her mother Kali, that kind of sham color, that gray-blue cloud color, cloud pregnant with rain. So again, without her, all the great tattvas would be like clouds with no rain. She puts all of that power, Shakti power, within everything. And at the top there, actually, I can sing that because I found out the Sanskrit for it and found out that Swami Vivekananda had used it in one of his songs to Divine Mother. It's called the Amba Stotram. So I'll sing the verse that you see written in English there. Amba sarva kagrinanam mamahina bude datum dorbiniva jagad vatri jagam datrim Shri Sanchantyam Sucharanam Abhaya Pratistam Seva Sarar Abhinutam Sharanam Prapadye. Basically, in English, it goes, who thou art, the mother, the all. How describe? My understanding is of so little worth. 'Twere like desire to seize with hands of mine the sole supporter of the universe. So there at thy feet, meditated on by the goddess of fortune herself, and worshipped by service true, there at thy feet, O Mother, I take refuge. So one of Swami Vivekananda's verses to the Adya Shakti, that's how we find her called here. Look at all the names for her. Mahatripura Sundari, the great mother of the worlds, the three cities. That means outer, inner, and transcendent. Shodashi, the 16-year-old virgin, she's ever pure. Shri, you know who Shri is? I mean, you hear the word a lot in front of names of people we revere, but actually that's a name for the goddess of fortune. That's Lakshmi's name, Shri. Jaganmata, mother of the worlds. Matangi, she's one of the Dasa Mahavijas. There are 10 of them. So is Bhagala there. She's Sarvamangala Devi, the name of one of the students in this room, given by a direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. She's all auspicious. Chanda and Chamunda. Probably, if you've read or studied with me the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam, that there were two very powerful demons that were causing even the gods a lot of problem. And they're going to lose their heavenly lands. These asuras are called. We're going to take over. But one was named Chamunda. And so she became Chanda and went to the battlefield and killed them both, to the amazement of everyone. The thing is, when the gods like the Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, cannot handle these upstart egos that take over worlds and forget them, then the first thing they do is think of mother. See, so in the Upanishads and the scriptures, you'll find the first person who usually thinks of mother is Lord Brahma. He'll stand back because he still remembers her giving him the word to start this whole mess out. This whole four roll of the dice Mahayuga is all started out by a word she gave him. So he stands back with a little bit more witness consciousness than the rest and says, how are we going to get out of this mess? And immediately he remembers the Divine Mother, thinks of her, and she comes. And when she comes, all four of his faces chant the four Vedas. The mouths open, announce her arrival. That almost never happens. All the four Vedas get chanted by Lord Brahma simultaneously. It only happens when she's about to enter the field of battle and she's about to come into form. And here's some of her forms. I mean, they're just descriptions of many of her aspects that just pretty much say everything that needs to be said. So she's Varahi. We were talking about that today because we were talking about experience about Ganesh last night and how the Lord in Hawaii also, they were talking about bearing Ganesha under the foundations of the four pillars of a temple. In Hawaii, they bury a pig under there, and then build a foundation on top of that. So, then I flashed it and said, well, yeah, that's Varahi or Varaha is one of the avatars, one of the 10 avatars that came very early on in time. And so Varahi is then the consort of that avatar. So she's named Varahi to be the power of the boar, see, who comes to save beings early on in time. She's Savitri. This is, of course, a short list, but these are the ones that appeared in this Upanishad. I'll read it for you soon. Savitri is, of course, a goddess of all the intelligence. She's sometimes also called Medha. She's Saraswati, the goddess of arts and learning and wisdom. She's Gayatri. Can't go much more toward the source than Gayatri, because the very Gayatri mantra is there that speaks about her. And then she has her own Gayatri. Om Durga Devi Gayatri Om. Tatyayanaya Vidmahe Kanyakumari Dimohi Diyoyona Prachodayat. It's just another variation of the Gayatri mantra we know, only to Durga, putting her name first. So that's, of course, Gaia. We know the word Gaia is spelled Gaia and so forth, has even taken over some of the thinking of current scientists and people. She's also there, Anandamayi. She's full of bliss. And quote from the Upanishad, she is all goddesses. That's the Bahvricha Upanishads way of saying it. What else is she? The Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, all the wind gods. I think they probably bring that out before they call her all of the gods, because the wind gods are Vayu and so forth, are so important for breathing, for life, for prana. And so if prana leaves, the other gods aren't able to do their functions. Prana comes back, they stand up and do their functions. There are stories about that in the Upanishads that are very beautiful, which we'll share with some of the children coming to our retreat in May. Share the Kano Upanishad and share stories about that. Those kinds of teachings are very good for youth. So the wind gods are very important to acknowledge for your breath, for the digestion of your food, for the spreading, for the purification of the air, the wind, and for the wind that moves your thoughts, psychic prana, moves your thoughts. Otherwise, they would just be stagnant, like out there. So many minds not thinking by God, even by accident, quote unquote. Who said that? They're not thinking of God even by accident, said Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. And he was looking at people in India in the 1800s when he said that. That's how low everything had fallen. It's not that you just forget mother, you forget the very life force in you, which is her gift to you. All divine musicians, you know what they're called in Sanskrit? Gandharvas. Yeah, the divine musicians are very important. And so are the apsaras. They're the consorts that teach love amongst the gods. They're all female. Subhuman beings, all powers. That is Shakti power is in everything. The power of our eye to see, the power of the tongue to express, power of the mind to think, and on inward into the original Adya Shakti power, all belong to her. She's also all enjoyments, which is instanced by the tongue that comes out, like Mother Kali's tongue comes out. Sometimes you see it's like absorbing everything back into it, big gold, like a flow of gold, like at the Kali temple in Calcutta. You see this, and it's just absorbing everything into it and giving everybody the power to enjoy the senses. But without her, the clouds would be like with no rain, right? There wouldn't be any purpose to them. Same with the senses. They'd be like clouds with no rain if she didn't put the power to enjoy in them. She's everything stationary and she's everything moving. So that kind of covers it all, doesn't it? And probably the only other thing you could say is that everything transcendent of both of those dualities, too. She's all that breathes, which of course is repeated, and all that is born, and she is mankind. So that's where they start talking about her as the Atman. Quote from Upanishad, all of these and more are born of her. Bahvricha Upanisad. Let me read it to you in the original. Now we sung the first verse. So Sloka 1, can you tell me how it begins? Om. Everyone here said that. Good. Starts with Om. And then the goddess was indeed one in the beginning. Alone she emitted the world egg. She is known as love's part. I'll explain that later. She is known as the half-syllabic instant after Om. Sloka 1. So might as well settle yourself in for a series of classes that last weeks and weeks, just with what is pregnant there in those teachings. Of course, Om, we just spent a week looking at Om with 7 new charts when we went to India a few weeks back. And then she alone emitted the world egg. Thing is that Brahman, the formless Brahman, is in everything, but it doesn't act, it doesn't think, it doesn't project. So its finest matrix would be her. You would think maybe people overlooking her would say the finest matrix is the word, so that's why it starts out with the word. But she's the one that gave the word to Lord Brahma, the scriptures say. He awoke from the navel of Vishnu and looked around the oceans of existence. She came to him at that point, gave him the word, Om, utter this. And then everything, the next creation will begin. The next cycle of 4 ages will begin, the way they put it in India. There are beautiful images of that and nice descriptions of it too. So the world egg is what we can look at in the rest of this class. I did tell you that I would explain really quickly why she's love's part. She's love's part because, can you show this chart real quick? We can come back to this one. Now that you've gotten a gander at it. Love's part is a very beautiful thing to explain here. So you see here, Om and Hrim are these 2 great words. Om is the word of Brahman, Hrim is the word of Shakti, is how they put that. Shakti has more words, like I'm. and Shrim and Klim and so forth. These all are connected with various aspects of the goddess, and they'll bring about certain powers. Remember when it said here, she's all the powers? That really means you can't just think of the way we think of power here in the West in contemporary times. You have to think about power bijams or words that she's full of. Like Holy Mother said that after Sri Ramakrishna had passed, he taught me all the mantras and all the power bijams. So he was aware of all of them, being, of course, avatar of this age. And so he shared them with Sri Sharda Devi and taught her the bijams, the goddesses they connected with, and the mantras that are used by these divinities in order to awaken souls. So one should go into the region where there is no speech or thing spoken, absolutely free of all dualities. I could read it off of the wall behind you because this chart is posted. That's called Akanda Satchidananda. There with Om, meditate on that highest flame of consciousness. In this rare meditation, great beings have destroyed ignorance and realized their perfect nature and established identity of the jiva with Brahman. This is my highest self. So you're getting it straight from Bhagavati Durga Devi out of her own scripture. That's a quote from the goddess. I'm not going to take a long time on the other part of this chart when it's posted on the wall here and it's in footfalls and you've seen it before. Just enough to say that Om is then got 3 mantras in it, A-U-M. So each, what's in a word, forget that. How about what's in a letter? Let's start there. So what's in a letter? All these things you see here called triputis. We were talking about it yesterday at satsang when one student had a question about it. So under A, there's Lord Brahma. He's the first of the Trinity. There's the waking state as compared to dreaming and deep sleep. There's the mother, the feminine energy. There's the gross form. And then under U, you have all the secondary equivalents to that. Vishnu, the dream state, the father, and the subtle form. Also, if you're talking about the 3 bodies, then you have, the outer body, the inner body, and the transcendent body. That's body, mind, and what's beyond them both. So that's how they're breaking down the word Om into triputis, under each one, just a few, like a short list of things that are probably most eminent and important. But we're trying to get to this, she's love's part. She's finest love's part. So if you look at Hrim, then in the scripture here, they've given us a clue in this English translation. It said, she is love's part, parens im. So they have it spelled here, I am, in English, with in parentheses. So you're saying, what's that mean? And she's love's part, im. What's im? So in her own scripture, she explains that there's ha, ra, yi, and then So that's how we get quickly to the conclusion so that we know a little bit about why she's love's finest part. Basically, it says here, she says herself, after balancing the breath via pranayama and cognizing the differentiated states of the bija mantra, that's these, ha, ra, and im, the gross form, the subtle form, the causal form, and everything that exists in you, in these 3 forms you have, in these 3 bodies, in these 3 worlds, which are in these 3 letters. Then she says, find out what they signify and meditate on them and mentally dissolve ha, the gross body, into the subtle body, ra, and then into the causal body, e, and the causal body into turiya of Hrim, symbolized by the mantra I am. Oh, she explains it right there, buried in thousands of pages, thousands of slokas, you'll find that. So I pulled that out of that big scripture. And so we would know that you don't just need to break AUM to find out, what's in a word, but that you can break Shakti's word down into 3, probably 4 different things. Didn't Om has a 4th too, doesn't it? The Turiya, right? So you've got waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and Turiya. It's the little one-eyed smile there and the Om sign that you put on your wall, that we put on our T-shirts back in the 60s. And then you can do the same then now with your power word, Hrim, which is the word of transformation. When you get this given to you by a guru, then you're interested in transforming yourself and realizing your higher nature. So that's for the ardent, sincere, intrepid spiritual traveler who is getting through with his experiences in the 3 worlds, is not interested in this world anymore, is not interested in going to heaven, and is not interested in going to the causal realm, wants to realize this. No more separation from my mother, is it? Saham. I am, she I am. No more birth in the womb of matter for me, only emanation from my divine mother. I want to be just her beam of light because it comes from her and it returns to her, just like sunlight does. So I told you I would tell you what that meant. She is love's finest part, parens, im. So when you close the word, Hrim and Om, they end with M, and Lord Shiva glides in and dissolves everything back with her power back to Brahman. Everything gets dissolved back into Brahman. It's called dissolution of the mind stream in some quarters. Then she says, before entering samadhi, focus upon me, the supreme deity, the luminous self-effulgent goddess who is one with Brahman. So she gives you a good set of instructions based on very high intelligence of you knowing about how to, the art of matras in the mantra. Don't confuse the word mantra with matra. Matra is the parts, letters of the word that's in the mantras. And then you can know how to break them back down to their origins and what they produced as they were said. And then when they were drawn back in, how everything here went back to itself. What's everything? Mankind, all your breath, everything moving and unmoving, all powers, all asuras, all divine musicians, the wind gods, the gods, and the Trinity, all will go back to the source, get dissolved there. A quick look at Om and Hrim, the 2 great bijams. Now, so that we make a little headway and get some ground covered inside of just Sloka 1, because you could see how we leave a class series like this rather open-ended, because it can just go on and on, explaining more and more in the beautiful religious and philosophical traditions of India, Vedanta, Samkhya, Tantra, Yoga, to name a few. So let's then look and jump to then the cosmic egg, because that's the next thing she says. We've looked a little bit at Om. We've looked at the closing of Om and Hrim. And now we want to see how, before it closes, everything begins. So from the causal to the subtle, back to the gross, and then involution is gross back to the subtle to the causal. So evolution is going out from some divine source. That's evolution. That's our definition of evolution, is that everything comes from somewhere and produces itself to the power of the word, call it vibration, if you will. And then it comes out to the gross, and then turns back in, and you say, Saham, I want to go back she I am. I want to go back to my mother. Sri Ramakrishna said, I spent hours with this boy one day, this young boy, playing with his toys. I was taking care of him. How'd you like to be babysit for by an avatar? Anyway, I watched him play with his toys, and then towards the end of the day, the boy threw the toys away and started crying. And everything Sri Ramakrishna could do, whatever he could do to try and distract him or placate him in any way, wouldn't work. He was just focused on, I want my mother. And that's all he wanted. And he knew that's all he wanted. So Sri Ramakrishna used that, of course, as a great teaching about when the soul is done with everything here and it wants to return to its source, then it's involution time. And that will be dissolving everything gross, like here, dissolving everything that's in your dream state and dissolving everything that's in your deep sleep state. Deep sleep's about the only good phrase we have to describe the causal. You can see here, formlessness, non-vibration, equilibrium. You have to struggle for just a few words in English to kind of give some taste of what it's like to be in a causal state. Deep sleep would be the experiential way of saying that. And then back to im, right? Everything goes back to that final pronunciation where Shiva is M. You see up here, Shiva is M, right? He'll dissolve everything back. He's that force of mothers, which will dissolve everything back to Brahman. Everything is soluble into Brahman, the avatar of this age proclaimed to us. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa Dev. To end this class, then, we want to look at the cosmic egg. So we'll come back to this. There's a lot more to see on this cover chart, but now you've seen it once, and you've seen the introduction of the Upanishad and how it's been placed here. You can see the Trinity here, as they're looking down on the pantheon of gods, Indra and the gods, and everything that is described in the Upanishads, some of which we've heard already. And then you can see pretty much the outlay of the chart as it proclaims She I Am, Saham, Saham. I chose this to look at rather than this because these are a lot of other great sayings, Saham being one of them. But I think maybe we can look at the cosmic egg by reviewing this chart. Everyone in this room might recognize it because you spent about an hour or two on it in India some weeks ago. Isn't that amazing? You were there and studying something like this in the eternal Bharat, the ancient India in its present form. But this gives us another image by which to understand the cosmic egg. So she says here, Om, the goddess was indeed one in the beginning. She alone emitted the world egg. That's Hiranyagarbha is the Sanskrit for that. So here you see a way of understanding that. So there you see Om in the middle of Lord Brahma's being. It's like when she came, she planted that in the Trinity before he awoke. Actually, before he fell asleep at the end of the last age, she made sure that that word was potential in Lord Brahma and in Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva, of course, because he was the one that brought it to an end by im, by the M of Om and Shrim. So you can see here the outlay of the whole thing is that Lord Brahma is this causal shape here, and he's got this business to do of projecting Om into the cosmic egg that is going to animate everything. And there she is as the force of the Chitti Shakti, allowing him to do that, just like she allows you to do everything you do each day when you wake up. It's just a microcosm of the macrocosm, right? You get up, first thought, you wake up, first thought you have, oh, I have to go to work, or first thought you have, I have to go to the shrine and meditate. That's better. And then so forth. And then pretty soon your day is kicked off. And it's like she's already planted the word in you and what to do, right? So you just wake up and do it. You're following your mother's directions and her instructions. In the same way, then, after a long cosmic sleep called pralaya, sometimes called mahapralaya, it's especially long state of formlessness, then she will waken up Lord Brahma, uh, Vishnu first, and then Lord Brahma comes out of that, and he's the one that's ready to get that, receive that word, Om. And in that way, then the cosmic egg is sort of like your deep sleep state in a cosmic sense. That's why it's called cosmic egg, Hiranyagarbha. It's, shining with potential, but it hasn't got the animating power of Shakti in it yet, much like Brahman. So she comes out of Brahman, as it were, and then she sees the Trinity, and she uses the first of the Trinity to insert her power of intelligence with this word that's an ancient eternal word, and inserts it into him, and he inserts it into the cosmic egg. You can see there a diagram to help us understand. So in words, it's like this. The great word, known in all religious traditions, is represented anthropomorphically by Lord Brahma. So as far as forms go, he's the best representative to represent Om. It's represented by wisdom principles as the Mahat, or the great mind. That's, of course, the mind of Lord Brahma. It's represented as the best of all wombs as Hiranyagarbha, the cosmic egg, and is represented best as itself as Om. So it exists as it Om, like in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. It's got its eternal existence where it's always sounding. The Tantras say, the Mahanirvana Tantra says, the word is never struck. It strikes itself. It's always being struck. So it's like I was describing, beings get to higher mind, they see Brahman. They fall from higher mind, they don't see Brahman anymore. And they get used to that. The mind is a covering power, cover. And it comes back to the covering power, and you can't see what. So hopefully your memory remembers coming back from seeing that. From lifetime to lifetime, those beings who remember their past lifetimes remembered seeing Brahman when they passed away. They know there's a light. And some of us, very young in the 60s saying, have you seen the light? Have you seen the light? So we were like knocking at the door towards remembering, Smriti Rupaya, remembering this great form of the light presented to us by the Divine Mother. Then finally we found ourselves, if we were fortunate, to a Swami Nikhilananda in New York, or to a Swami Sheshanandaji Maharaj in Portland, or to a spiritual path like Vivekananda was bringing to us and called Vedanta in the United States, and we remembered her. See, we remembered her, and when we remembered her, how did we say it? Saham. Don't forget to remember. Right? Saham. She I am. It's not I am she, by the way. It's she I am. She's first, and then you are. The I has to be always taught the order of things, the most important order of things. Nobly and reverentially entitled the word, Omkara, Pranava, and more, it is the original matrix between formless awareness and all that emanates forth from it as thoughts, ideas, concepts, words, bodies, and all of nature. All right, so we go back and see everything that exists in her because of the word. There it is. Everything exists inside of her because of that explanation. It's the original she is the original matrix between formless awareness and everything that emanates forth from it as thought, ideas, concepts, words, bodies, worlds, and all of nature. That's all of Prakriti. So keep that in mind as we keep in the original chart in mind. To explain more about the Hiranyagarbha, here's a few selections from the scriptures. The Purana says, this is Matsya Purana, at the end of a great cycle of manifestation, all was drawn back into dissolution. Remember, we're talking now, the im, right? A cycle ended and the word closes. Everything that was in the word has to close with it. It gets drawn back. Generally spoken of involution or, a Mahapralaya, a new cycle, emptiness, whatever you want to call it, it all gets dropped back. But don't be afraid. She I am. She's the one that's controlling the word, doing those functions, and the Trinity that carries them forth for her. So keep your mind focused. Then the Satya Yuga began again. Lord Brahma arose. He was now named Swayambhu. That's the Lord of the whole solar line. And created the primordial waters first. Those aren't waters here like the ocean. They're the thought water that came out of, A, U, and M. All of these things, gross form, subtle form, causal form. There's a subtle water, and then there's a dream water, and then there's an earth water, gross water that we drink, that we see, we swim in. You have to take those back inside of these levels of consciousness to the subtlemost seed of water. And that's here the God of water is telling you how to do that, right? The God of wind is Vayu and so forth. The God of fire is Agni. So there's a God of water that's telling you, draw water back inside of yourself. You can swim tonight when you go to sleep. And you can swim in the ocean of consciousness too, if you like, which is bliss. You can dip yourself in bliss every night in deep sleep. So beyond all three of those forms of water is what it's talking about here. He, named Swayambhu, created the primordial waters first. That's called Akar Nava in Sanskrit. There's words for it. It then placed the seed of creation into them. It's a beautiful way of how I wanted to get an image, found these things, put them together, and showed how this is happening in a visual for us. But now you have to see it as happening actually inside as the power of Shakti doing this in the realm of finest conception, deepest intelligence, how she's doing this. So he placed the seed of creation into them, which turned into the golden womb called Hiranyagarbha. This is an ancient Purana. So you can see that India has been thinking this way for time out of mind. And it's just beginning to be introduced as what we're calling Adi Daiva Vidya, the eternal divine wisdom, is beginning to come back to our memories now here in the West, in the Kali Yuga, in America, of all places, and in Europe. And people are sitting up and going, that sounds interesting. I think I want to follow that path. I want to know what's the source of all things. Who is this divine mother you're talking about? What is Brahman? Who am I? These questions become then very important to people to search into the nature of them. Let's see what the Isha Upanishad says about it. That seer who knows that both the unmanifested Prakriti, that's here in deep sleep, as well as manifested Hiranyagarbha, that's the cosmic egg, which now is springing into action, should be worshipped together, overcomes death by such veneration. So it's a beautiful truth. That is, if you come to know that involution and evolution are going on in cycles all the time, there's not going to be long before you ask, where are they going on? It's not going to be long after that where you find them going on in you. See, you thought they were outside all this time, and that's what you were taught by upbringing, by family, by society, by education, by all the things that all they've told you, which are half true at best. They never told you the whole truth because they didn't know it. So the ancient seers remembered her, right? My first chant today, they remembered her as the imperishable Shakti. So the minute they were born, what's afoot here? It's like Sherlock Holmes in the spiritual sense, right? What's afoot? Moriarty is Maya, see, the devil, the evil. And Sherlock Holmes is on the scent, on the trail to find out what this is all about. It traced it all back to her power, to Shakti power. So the point there being is that you'll realize your birthless, deathless nature when you find out that everything's going on in cycles, and those cycles are going on here in you. I say here in your mind, because in the Atman, nothing really goes on. There's no cycles. It's in the mind. So Brahma has great mind. So you can see how he can project all of this. But he goes to sleep and dissolves it all back into Shiva every night. One of his nights 100,000 years long, by the way. So you need to do the same, right? You know my chant, Pramadina nasandeha kim karishyami vrittiman. I chant that quite often from the Avadhuta Gita and so forth. Basically, um, what do these souls, these great souls, what do they do with their thoughts? They let them rise, then dissolve them all back at the end of the day like bubbles into water. So that's what you need to do with everything here. Not just because it's unreal, that's something you can use to convince yourself of the futility of clouds with no rain, you know, because nobody's seeing her. They're not having any satisfaction here in life. Very few are being satisfied by objects or by worlds, by heaven even, because it's a cycle. So in that way, then you come to realize all the cycling of thing, and like Buddha said, then you want to get off the Kala Chakra, and you start standing back away from birth and death, ideas of birth and death that are basically going on inside of the ancestor realm, heaven, earth, hell, the three worlds. Very beautiful. She's called Tripura, because you know that there's a mother that's overlooking all those three cities, those three worlds. You can extend the meaning of that and find out that she can guide you through the three worlds, as that last sloka of Patanjali's yoga I chanted early in the class, you know, Kaivaya Swarupa Pratishtam. She's the steady one here in nature. So Kaivaya, if I'm steady in her, I can withdraw from nature, realize my true self in this very lifetime, and remain in remembrance of that if I should come back here again, like the seers do, like Swami Vivekananda did when he came back into materialistic Western world. Talk about a thick Maya to have to go penetrate. So that's how the Isha Upanishad would put that. Basically, it's not long before as you see birth and death going on, but you're still here. You'll realize that there's something going on inside of you that you can put an end to and get free of. It's called moksha or mukti as well. And it concludes it by saying that one obtains immortality through reverence for Prakriti. So all of those things, if you just look at separating Purusha from Prakriti, because Prakriti is sentient and the Purusha is insentient, you tend to run the risk of defiling everything and irritating the gods, right, who are parts of you. And so Mother will abandon a seer or a yogi like that. They won't be able to see her. They may be very intelligent, priests may be very intelligent, and so forth, but they won't be able to see the essence that she is because they're not having reverence for everything, because they're not seeing that she is all. Saham. She's everything here. So I can with her help, dissolve everything from waking to dreaming to deep sleep, or from gross, subtle to causal, and release thy hold, sannyasa bold, and say Om Tat Sat Om, and say Saham at the same time, and draw everything back in to myself from where it all originated. And I'll see Lord Brahma there, like in the Upanishad. I've seen all your worlds, can I go beyond them now? And Lord Brahma will step aside, and there's Om. See, the final dissolution. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva I've often described as stand with their backs to Om at the end of their very, very, very long lifetimes. You can imagine 100,000-year days and 100,000-year nights. A whole lifetime of those 200,000-year periods is a long time, called a Mahayuga. Then when it's time for pralaya or dissolution, they'll stand aside and turn back and merge themselves into Om. So we gave you the pecking order. Now just turn it on its side, or take it from bottom up, from earth to water, to fire, to air, to earth, to touching, tasting, hearing, smelling, and seeing, and so forth. The quintuplication process in reverse, back to the source. And there she is, waiting for her child to come home. Our founder, Lex Hickson's title of his first book, Coming Home. The Shakta Upanishad says, meditate upon the self as Om, and Godspeed to you in crossing over to the farthest shore beyond all darkness. It also says, that formless, all-pervasive presence who projected the Trinity at the beginning of a cosmic cycle, who vouchsafed the word and the Vedas to Lord Brahma, who is an eternal bridge to immortality, who is partless, formless, actionless, and divine, who resembles fire that has consumed all its fuel, I go for refuge to that eternal source, which turns the soul's attention to the Atman, the eternal self within. Yo Brahmanan Vidadati Purvam, Yo Vai Vedansha Prahino Hitashmai, Tanhadeva. So that great Lord, that great Mother, I go to refuge for her and say Saham. I go back to her feet of bliss, and she turns the attention of mankind to the Atman, because that's her in everything. She is the secret of Om, grounded in the word Om. So they're really drawing a very direct connection to her as being Om, as being the mother of the word. Well, we know Vakdevi is the mother of the word, right? So it shouldn't be anything new to us, but it's very powerful to contemplate it nonetheless. Trinity Upanishad says the three phonetic components of Om, that's there, A-U-M, correspond to the three stages of cosmic creation. That's projection, sustenance, and withdrawal. When the word is uttered, it celebrates all the powers of the universe. So that's how you would revere Prakriti, right? That's how you would revere Prakriti, by just saying the word Om, because everything in Prakriti comes from Om. So you can honor all the gods, all the deities, the mother herself, by uttering this monosyllable uh, Om. See, this word of Brahman, and that's how powerful it is, and how it can take the mind to a very high place instantaneously. Gaudapada follows in his commentary saying, Om symbolizes everything manifest, and yet has its origin in the unmanifested. So the word was with God. That Om is in Brahman. And that's why they call the word Brahman's word. The only word it needs. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. It was in the beginning with God. All things were conceived through it, for without it nothing manifest could be made. It is inherent in the world, and the world is fashioned through it, yet the world knows it not. That's how John, Jesus' disciple, meditated on the word after he heard Jesus talking about it. And finally, with the fresh onset of a cosmic age, the firstborn archetypical soul surveys the handiwork of Mahaprakriti and proceeds to invest it with names and forms of inconceivable variety and infinite content. So that's the firstborn archetypical soul back to the Trinity or Lord Brahma. We have a short amount of time left, so maybe instead of wrapping it up, we can at least get a start on the cosmic eggs, more detailed variety. You see here 2 eggs really. The sentient soul's emergence as a being comes from that egg of consciousness, and then nature's primordial seed is the side by side. They're overlapping and interconnected all the time. So all of this comes from Swami Vivekananda's saying that intelligence is a compound of consciousness. It's the first compound of consciousness. So everything comes out of that primordial soul and its processes through Om and with the power of intelligence. So you could mate Shakti power with intelligence. Down here, it's hard to see that because people are using her Shakti power for ignoble things. They're doing negative acts. Their bad karma is happening because they're using her power, her prana, in the wrong sense. That's why people who don't breathe right, they tend to use energy and prana for the wrong kinds of acts. So they try and get them to breathe, like children, try and get them to breathe and watch their breath settle down. They find out that they can control the heart rate and the mind by the breathing process, then they become masterful at prana. And those who become masterful at prana, then they'll never be far from the mother. Upanishad says they'll never be far from the source. So it's very important then to start where you are with the energy here and take it inside, knowing that it connects to something finer and more intelligent, like prana to psychic prana would be a good thing to meditate on in this age, because unfortunately, this age, most people have forgotten both prana and psychic prana. When people started talking about prana, then it was inevitable that 30, 40, 50 years later, 60, 70 years later, that somebody would all of a sudden read Swamiji's works and hear about psychic prana. And then the next level of remembrance can happen, for a soul, such as ourselves. Oh, there's a psychic prana too. What's that mean? And, oh, that's more intelligent than just a prana. The prana can be used for all sorts of different things. It can be imbalanced. It can be spiked. It can be dull. It can go away. You can become blind and not able to work and function. Not just because of incapacities, but because your mind gets tamasic. It doesn't allow you to move anymore. So in that way, then we have to then follow it inward like everything else to the psychic prana. And there you'll find a connection to intelligence. So that's what's being said here. There are gradated compounds of consciousness, and intelligence is the first. And in the few minutes remaining, let's get a start on this chart by reading this sloka. The question of what comes first, the chicken or the egg, is not rational, for consciousness, as well as being immediate and simultaneous, is anterior to form and activity. It is the great predecessor of everything. In the case of embodied beings in nature, then, The awareness that infuses celestial, human, and animal forms precedes all of nature's manifestations, but it cannot embody till nature produces the many worlds and their copious bounty. Thus, it appears that nature is on the scene prior to all creatures, high and low. But the great minds will but the great minds will pre-plan all that is to occur and provide the multi-layered, multifaceted ground upon which it occurs as well. With intelligent being the first thing out the gate, I'm quoting Vivekananda there, and the first compound of consciousness, also quoting Vivekananda. The great mind's will pre-plans all that is to occur. That was I stumbled on that, so you need to repeat that. So in that way, they're talking here about the great consciousness, right? Consciousness, as well as being immediate and simultaneous, is anterior to form and activity. It's the grand predecessor of all. So that's the mother. And that's why the beings want to align themselves with her. And they have one word that they can do that, as you can see by our beautiful chart, Saham, Saham. So we got to start on the Bahvricha Upanishad. And next Sunday, same time, same station, as they say, as long as the powers that be keep working, like the web and so forth. We will be here with you and willing and able to share this beautiful Vedantic lore and mother wisdom with you. Devim prasanam pranatarti hantrim yogindra prujam jugadharma patrim tam sharadam bhakti vijnana datrim maya swarupam pranamami nityam. O propitious goddess, killer of misery and souls resigned, thy saints and sages worshipped, O mother kind, savior of religion in every age. Give us love and wisdom, thou, O grace incarnate, to thee we bow. Jananim Sharadam Devim Jagadgurum Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Pado Padme Toye Shritva Pranamami Mahur Mahur Pranamami Mahur Mahur. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om, Hari Om. Om.